Hello, I'm your host, Lady Evil, and welcome back to another episode of Dicentra. I think that's how you say it. Ooh. Oh, shoot, that's right. I wince at the bites. I wince at the bites. The roses are extra hungry today. Oh. Well, this is quite the intro to the second episode. Is she feeding the roses her blood? After not feeding them for a while, their petals have bleached to a stark white. I watch as my blood saturates the colorless flowers, then narrow my eyes when I spot a parasite fungi at the base of the bush. Part of the bush is already starting to wither because of it. Oh, so this is from her perspective. This is not her speaking. Okay. Clarifying that. I reach down and tear it out harshly. Dirt sprays my gown and I crush the fungi in my fist. Not a good way to get rid of them. Soap and vinegar! Soap and vinegar! I know more will sprout in its place, but seeing such a blight this close to the rosebush makes a bolt of anger rise in me. Just seeing it makes me want to destroy it. I walk to a different section of the greenhouse and throw it right next to the corpses of the fungi's latest victim. My heart clenches at the sight. Its eyes are still open. I press my fingers down the lids of the dead wolf. Oh no. But it's too late. The terror on its face is already cemented in time. My fingers curl and my nails stab into my palm, making the bite sting. I return to the rosebush and continue feeding them. Oh! Thunder and lightning thrash above me. Will it lure in another pitiful soul tonight? I hear— oh, is this when we came in? Oh! I hear a door slam and I flinch, crushing a bulb in my hand. My ears listen intently, searching for lingering traces of its presence. When I find none, I take a deep breath and finally let myself relax. I tear the bulb from its seam and my hand falls to my side. The sound of the rain is so clear now as I close my eyes to let it wash out everything else. I relish in its violence against the roof of the greenhouse and tremble under the crisp cracks of thunder. To pass the time, now that it is mine, I whisper something my mother taught me under my breath. Then I hear a whimper come from behind me. Yeah, that's us. Ooh, that's interesting. Death returns. I look up from my view of worn book spines and see Dove. Oh, this is a lovely room. Oh, I like it. Very nice. She sits in a creaky wooden chair with her knees drawn up beneath her chin. She brushes pale fingers across the rough paper of a large tome sitting open on the desk in front of her. This is a lovely library. I would love to have something like this. It doesn't have to be big. Built-in shelves are like, mwah, chef's kiss. I also love the little archway going on. I love skull decor. I love gothic decor, if you can't tell. The desk looks like it's made of dark wood with deep grooves and jagged swirls that have been carved by something sharp. It sits tucked away in the back of a small library in the mansion. Large bookshelves loom around us like trees in a dark forest. The narrow arched window above the desk and dripping candles are the only things that light up this dark and decrepit space. I didn't know the mansion had such an intimidating space like this until we had wandered in earlier. Today's itinerary did not include any of Dove's peculiar chores. Peculiar? Yes. Instead, she spent the time wandering around the manor with a notebook and a stick of charcoal. I follow her as she roams aimlessly through the halls, weaving in and out of different rooms. As she continues wandering, body and mind seemingly detached, I carefully inspect every inch of the manor, desperate for a sign that proves this house can be cracked open, allowing me to finally return home. At some point, she stops wandering to sit and curl up at the foot of a decorative stone bust. When I look past her darkly smudged hands, I catch a glimpse of pages portraying the same bust over and over again. I don't think it's possible for her to draw that quickly in such a short amount of time. I wonder if she has her subject memorized by now, considering how familiar she is with it. Dove seems to be drawn to art. I wonder if art is the key to get out of here. Her sketchbook joins her throughout all her tiny efforts to kill time in this house that she cannot leave. I begin to think that the professional paintings lining the hallways have some influence on this creative side of her. Probably done it by her parents. Perhaps she's inspired by someone close to her. Or maybe she's just intensely curious. I do wonder, what happened to her family for her to end up in such a bizarre state? My thoughts trace back to my arrival at the mansion. There is someone who has yet to reappear, and I strongly hope that I'm gone long before he makes his appearance again. Yeah, that dude. We have no explanation on who that guy is at all. He knows our name, invited us in. Well, invited us, quotation marks, but... Dove surprises me when she walks into a new room during our walk. I cautiously follow her in, and the room reveals itself to be a library full of grit and darkness. Oh. Weren't we just in here? Or is this a different section? I can see dust particles floating silently. Oh, cat. Oh. Hi, Miso. What? Me. You just got up. You stink. Can I read? Alright. I can see dust particles floating silently in the small beam of light that filters into the room. It tickles my nose and makes me sneeze, throwing me forward into a roll until I land on my back with a view of the spiderweb-infested ceiling. Oh, lovely. Dove pays no... Oh, excuse you. Dove pays no attention to my fumble and carries on to the back of the room until she reaches a stack of books. I shake my head to recover, ears flopping against my skull, and follow her to the rest of the way in. As I delve further into the room, I quietly observe the floor-to-ceiling rows of bookshelves. All of them seem to vary in width, and are arranged in a pattern that seems maze-like. Also, if you hear something in the background, Miso's having... He's having the sneeze, poor boy. Books stand in tall piles and scattered around the floor like they've been thrown around carelessly. My ear gives a small twitch at the sound of one hitting the floor, and I turn my gaze to Dove. She silently slips into a chair with a book in hand. I see her focusing intently on reading after settling into the desk, and I slump to the floor. Today's humidity has followed me like a blanket I can't push off. It's so thick and it feels like I keep walking into a wall of heat. It's Florida! Dove doesn't seem as bothered by it, but she's not the one covered in fur. I start panting loud enough to draw Dove's attention away from her book. She glances over and wrinkles her brows at me. What's wrong with you? I tilt my head in confusion. Her eyes rake over me inquisitively, then they brighten. She hops out of her chair, and I start to stand so I can follow her, but she's already speeding out of the room. Stay here! My ears flatten anxiously, but I slide back down to the floor. It's too hot to move anyway, I guess. Dove soon returns, carrying something in her hands, and I go on edge. Please don't have raw meat again. Please, that was awful for everyone involved. My body tenses when she sets a bowl in front of me, and I immediately relax. Is it a bowl of ice water? Oh, water. I give Dove a quick side-eye. Her attention is already settling back into her... I don't think she's... Listen, man. I don't think she's gonna do anything bad to us at this point. She needs companionship. I really think she's just trying to figure out, like, how to get her family back and or put the people here at, to rest once again. Yeah. After drinking a bellyful of water, I plop down on my side, feeling much more refreshed. I blink blearily after a noise disturbs my brief midday nap. Did Dove just say something? Oh. I flinch and tilt my gaze up after Dove slams the cover of her book shut. She lets out a large sigh and throws her arms straight out over the desk with her head bowed between them. She then turns her head towards me. Have you ever seen a witch? My ears perk up. Why did she ask that? Cat, no. Go settle down. Dove is clearly not a witch herself, as far as I've been able to tell at least. I can't imagine what kind of witch would want to spend their time meticulously drawing the same thing over and over again. And Dove feels within my reach. No witch can make me feel that way. However, the possibility for her to have any relation to a witch is increasingly tangible. Only magic can explain the things this mansion is brimming with. Cat? Enough. I can't find comfort in a place like this, but avoiding a run-in with a witch has been a blessing, considering the obvious traces of one. If only I could ask Dove for answers. The more I learn about this place, the more questions I have. It's so frustrating, not being able to speak. Oh. Oh goodness. I startled from the sound of a book dropping around. Did you just throw a book at me? The book Dove had been leafing through now sits before me, open to a random section. I can't help but let my gaze flicker down to it. My eyes widen as I take in the contents of the page before me. Strange symbols in cursive writing fills every inch of the old parchment. I stand and draw closer to see better. Curious thing, aren't you? I look up and see Dove facing me in her chair, observing me with her head resting on her palm. I freeze under her stare. My eyes dart to the book again. You know that has 100% mortality rate with cats? I tip my nose up at her. Good thing I'm not a cat. Dove narrows her eyes. The corner of her lip twitches. She unravels her curled limbs and stands from her seat. From there, she drags her bare feet across the floor until she reaches the open book, kneeling down and flattening her palm over its pages. Well, I suppose there is more to the cat's story than people think. I can only catch a quick glimpse of the rough circle carved into the hard leather of the cover before Dove grabs it and flips it closed. She then opens it again to the first few pages with undelicate hands. I read the words at the top of the page. Death returns. Dove traces her fingers over the words. Satisfaction brings it back. I feel my tail wagging at the base of my spine as I look back up to Dove. Would you like to learn about magic? It's not just something anyone can do. My yellow eyes meet her blue ones. Magic. Nothing has ever haunted me more. And now, like a candle that has been lit at the bottom of an abyss, I can finally search for what I've always yearned. Nod. The moment I give my answer, something about Dove changes. Like hot embers fanned in the wind, her pale eyes glow in the dim light. I feel my heart thumping in my chest. Her mouth stretches wide. I can see the points of her canines and her gums are black. Oh, goodness. Dove rarely smiles, even more so with teeth. I hold back a shudder. Well, I mean, this kid has probably been alone in this place for who knows. It could be centuries, literally. She could be stuck as a kid forever. My gods. This time, I know for sure that my heart does not race in fear. Dove looks directly into my inhuman eyes. A malevolent grin creeps across her face. In that moment, I knew she could see her fiery eyes reflected in mine. Oh, goodness. My eyes walk across the first page, my chest blooming with excitement. A book about magic. I've never been able to read one before. They were all removed before I could get a chance. Everything you could ever want to know about magic is written in this book. It's the witch's Bible, after all. I love it. My mouth goes dry. For a moment, I imagine myself elsewhere. Oh. I'm back with my grandmother, sitting on the carpet by the fireplace, having my burning questions dismissed once again. Your birth brought you freedom, Basil. One day you will understand that. I can only smother my disappointment with a short reply. No matter how many times I asked for an explanation, she would always deflect or ignore my prodding. So I stopped asking and started searching for my own answers. I see nothing special about myself. But I could be. I slowly look up at Dove. She stares deeply into my eyes before looking back down into the open book. Then she starts reading. There is much to know before one uses magic, and it all begins with death. I take a deep breath and my ears stand up attentively. From the moment of birth, sentient bodies accumulate toxins, energy, and resources. Upon death, these bodies begin to rot and break down, returning these compounds to the environment. It's hard to believe, but in the state of decomposition, new life is abundant in the absence of an old one. Question, is she... when we had that moment earlier in the episode, I was curious whether potentially the fungi ghost got to that wolf, or is she doing something to them to gain some kind of, like, power? I immediately deflate. What? My silence must have been deafening because Dove snaps her head back up at my reaction. In spite of my ability to truly be expressive with my canine features, I must have created quite the emotional response because Dove turns completely flustered. A deep scarlet burns her cheeks, its heat crawling up to her forehead. She awkwardly looks down and starts fidgeting with her fingers. Wait. Her brows quickly pinch together. I start to think that she might actually be embarrassed. My jaw drops slightly in disbelief. You... I watch her swallow a lump in her throat. I realize that was probably difficult to understand. I forget to breathe when Dove looks at me once again, with fingers tightly intertwined and round eyes. You're really listening. Yeah, we're listening. Dove looks at me in complete astonishment. I'm at a complete loss in how to react. Dove runs a hand through her messy hair and recollects herself. She returns to the book in front of her, starting from the beginning again. There's a certain type of energy that is created in the process of decay. That energy is magic itself, existing in the plane between life and death. This plane is also known as the ether. No living being can ever see it. It's an inevitable occurrence. Death is guaranteed in the circle of life. It's cruel but necessary. Because when death blooms, new life persists. Dove tilts her head and flips through the pages of the book. Of course, I'm only summarizing the complexities. It's not as simple in practice, because magic is not something that can be contained by any laws we've observed in nature. At least the ones we know. In fact, magic is no different than a species you're probably familiar with. Mushrooms. Oh, you have my attention. I cock my head in confusion and look at Dove, expecting her to elaborate on her explanation. She leans over the witch's Bible, balancing on one arm and holding up her pointer finger. Let me explain. Mushrooms are the only thing in nature that do not follow a logical system. Normally, creatures with bright colors always serve as a warning sign to stay away. Though, through evolution, both flora and fauna have developed characteristics that allow them to survive long enough to pass down that trait. But with mushrooms, none of that applies. Bright, dull, big, clustered, you can't tell if a mushroom will kill you based on looks alone. Sort of. You can't tell if a mushroom will kill you based on looks alone. The only way to find out is to eat it. I gulp. Dove makes mushrooms sound like old gods. But back to the topic at hand. Dove flips to a new page, and I pause at the sight of scratchy doodles that make the words on the page illegible. The hell? Definitely Dove's handiwork. Magic can be unpredictable and unstable. By this logic, areas with little death hold little magic. Likewise, places with an abundance of death hold an abundance of magic. Places like cemeteries. Oh, you mean the one that's outside? I nod in understanding as Dove continues. It's the reason ghosts love to linger around there so much. Dove crosses her legs and rests her head on her palm. She hasn't been turning the pages of the book, yet she explains everything in perfect detail. She's had a lot of time to read this thing, man. Just how many times has she read this book? I've been told that witches become empowered by corpses buried deep beneath their feet, and with that power comes tragic silence. Dove's expression becomes solemn, but in that silence there's also an earnest level of respect from those who have passed away. She pauses for a moment and starts turning the pages again. When she finds the page she wants, the corners of her lips perk up. Or a satisfactory feast. My ears twitch. However, there are two exceptions to this. In spaces void of death, magic is completely unusable. Most witches usually avoid them like the plague. When the shimmer of magic runs through your veins as naturally as breathing, being there feels like gravity has amplified tenfold. It may be the closest thing to feeling human for a witch. On the contrary, a space plagued with too much death becomes dangerous for everything in it. Without caution, the magic can overflow and seep through the cracks between planes, corrupting everything it touches. And this is where the witches come in. Dove turns to a new page. The spread before me makes the fur along my spine stand up. Whoa. I am greeted with an illustration of demons holding what appear to be babies. Okay. Are they human? Or perhaps they're... Something in my brain clicks. I know this part. The concept of witchlings receiving the devil's blessing at birth to become full-fledged witches. My grandmother knows how to attain this blessing, but refused to tell me no matter how much I Interesting. No matter how much I asked. It's a miracle I even know this much from what little she told me. Dove pauses to stare at the illustration. I nod my nose in her direction as encouragement to continue. Every witch begins with the devil's blessing. Once they receive the blessing, they are bound to hell. Dove gets lost in thought for a moment and combs her fingers through her hair. Do you know that witches have three commandments? Oh, gods. I blink. Of course it's 3. 1. Know God before the devils. 2. Thou shalt honor the devil's gift. And 3. Magic shall never be used without the devil's permission. Dove frowns as she stares at the last commandment. She didn't mention how witches receive the blessing. I whine in disappointment. Dove seems to completely misunderstand my reaction. Are you scared? Don't worry. Demons won't be making deals with a little puppy like you. I snort in annoyance. The relationship between demons and witches is symbiotic. Because witches can access the ether, they can utilize magic. The more magic they use, the more power is imbued in hell. The demons who reside in hell can extract that power and use it to create the chaos they love so much. I let an involuntary shiver. I can't help the anxiety that rises from the knowledge of using magic to provide enrichment for beings that love nothing more than trouble. However, witches don't just exist for demons to live vicariously through them. They have the responsibility of keeping magic levels in balance. That's so boring to talk about, though. The most important thing in this book are these. Dove shows me a page filled with magic circles. Using magic is a little different from fairy tales. You can't just conjure something from nothing with a swish of your hand. Not without a couple of steps, at least. Magic is... It's far more similar to, She taps her index finger on her chin. Oh, it's like baking. I feel my brows pinch in confusion. Magic is like making cakes? Well, you see, baking requires perfect measurements. Dove flips through the witch's Bible until she lands on her desired page. She then lifts the book and presents it to me. Strange symbols greet my eyes. Each one of these symbols represents an element. These are your ingredients. She turns to a new page filled with various illustrations of circles. In order to use magic, you need to gather the right elements and place them within a circle that looks just like this one. Every space within the circle is like a number. This is why magic is like baking. The ingredients and measurements must be exact. Music just went down. Is it restarting? A single miscalculation could be the difference between enhancing a rose and killing it. Oh. One more thing. For every spell in this book, there is a secret ingredient. Dove slides a page between her middle and ring finger until the page meets the webbed skin of her hand. Ooh, without even flinching, she pulls her hand across the paper. I immediately cringe away, like I could feel the stinging sensation of paper slicing into her sensitive skin firsthand. Dove holds her hand up and pinches the flesh around the paper cut, pushing out beads of scarlet. She sets the witch Bible flat on the floor again and hovers her hand over the drawing of circles. More blood runs from the cut and forms crimson droplets that hang from the tip of her finger. It feels like minutes go by before the droplet finally falls from her hand, staining the paper below. Whoa. The sound of blood dripping onto the page echoes in my ears like a ticking clock. I focus on the way the blood splatters on impact right in the middle of a circle, then runs down the curve of the paper until it fully soaks into the parchment. If you've made your spell correctly, all you need is a little witch blood to make it transform before your very eyes into art. Dove curls her hand into a fist. Witchlings may not have a demon's blessing, But we are surely not human. We come from fire and brimstone after all. Magic belongs in our veins. Just because we're not connected to the ether doesn't mean it isn't there, just waiting for our call. Dove leans over the bloodied drawings with hunger in her eyes. Her hair falls like a curtain of bramble around the witch Bible. The sight makes me think of putrid veins that spread from an infection. One day, we won't need anyone's blessing to take what is ours. Huh. Curious. I tense up. She notices my stiffness and gives me a small smile. Are you intimidated by magic now? Don't worry, there's no need to go through something as advanced as creating your own spells. That's what the Witch's Bible is for. It contains all the spells you could ever need. Dove trails off. It looks like she has more to say, but she hesitates to express her thoughts. I rest my head on my paws as the silence stretches. Her expression sours before speaking again. I want more, though. My head lifts. These spells aren't enough for me. She narrows her eyes at the Witch's Bible and smooths the parchment with her hand before crumbling it into her fist. I blink in surprise. The witches are brave enough to walk the earth as hosts for parasitic demons in hell, and yet... She looks down at her open palms, gaze lingering on the wound, blood now clotted. She starts raising her voice, and I flinch in response. And yet they bind themselves to so many rules. They can use magic. They're the only ones that can use magic. All the possibilities in the palm of their hands. But what's this? Dove throws the book open, showing the words carved into the side of the cover. Do not use magic on people. Do not waste magic with minuscule pursuits. Always keep magic levels balanced. Never take too much. Her face contorts in frustration with every line she reads. They smother themselves. They make themselves so small. They do not pursue progress. There's only tradition this and tradition that. It drives me mad. Dove suddenly grabs the witch's Bible and violently throws it. I jump out of the way as it bashes into a wall. A flurry of papers erupt when it slams into the desk beneath it. Dove stands, huffing out short breaths and clenching her fists as pages flutter down around her like snowfall. The sight haunts me. It's like seeing a glimpse of Dove free from the walls that contain her. Everything you want to know about magic is written in the Bible. But I want more. As I watch the papers flutter to the ground, I notice something written on all of them. Alchemical compositions sketched with impatient scrawl litter every page I see. The symbols and circles look nothing like what I had seen in the Bible. Dove mutters something to herself. I'm not afraid like they are. The temperature around me drops. I almost expect my breath to cloud my face when I exhale. Just what is Dove trying to create? Dove drifts back to the desk, but she doesn't sit back down. She just stands there instead, completely lost in thought. I look around the room, feeling awkward in the silence. Eager to not sit in it for a second longer, I stand and get ready to wander off. I turn back and give Dove one last glance before trotting away. I wander around the library, observing the piles of dusty books on the floor and the worn spines that crowd the shelves. One book in particular captures my attention. I take nimble steps closer to inspect a strange object hugging a book on the bottom shelf. It resembles a spider with long and bony appendages that stretch around the cover. Something about it that you don't say. It fills you with unease. I wonder why. Is it a decorative piece or is it alive? Because at this point, I'm questioning everything. I start to back away when out of nowhere, ooh, I'm thrown onto the floor and the air is knocked out of my lungs. I let out a yelp and quickly realizing that was a mistake. Something wraps tightly around me, constricting my movement and making it difficult to breathe. The more I struggle, the tighter the grip becomes. My eyes begin to sting as I catch a glance at the strange book I saw earlier. The cover... The spider-like object that had wrapped around its spine is now crushing me with its limbs. Why do you... We did this to ourselves. Footsteps rapidly reach my ears and I see Dove approaching, or appearing around the corner of a bookshelf. I could see the look of surprise etched on her face. A strange reaction to seeing me get crushed to death. I thought he got rid of that! She finally shows panic when I let out a pained bark. Dove rushes over and drops to her knees. I can feel her bony hands trying to dig under the spider's legs, but it digs into my flesh in the process. She pulls her hands back and bites her lip. I then feel her grabbing me again, hauling me into the air. Just hold on. I can fix this. Her confidence is betrayed by her wavering voice. Is this it for me? It's a miracle I even made it this far, at least. My breathing quickens. No, I don't want to die like this. I thrash my body in Dove's arms, fighting back against the constricting creature. Uh-oh. I can feel my vision turning fuzzy as Dove bursts into a room I've never seen before, or have never been in before. Whoa! She slips on something that sounds like paper, sending us both tumbling onto the floor. I let out a weak cry, while Dove lands hard on her hands and knees. The spider continues to tighten its grip. Gods, what is up with this fucking spider? Dove wastes no time turning over to a shelf to rifle through bottles and drawers for something. When she finally finds what she's looking for, she quickly reads a tag attached to it and hurries back to me. I see her uncork a bottle with swirling purple liquid before pouring its contents onto it. Oh no! I feel searing heat drip onto my skin as the spider screeches. I howl in agony when some liquid drips onto me, and Dove releases a gasp. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get it on you. I whimper to cope with the pain. The only relief I can feel is the loss of suffocating pressure around me. Dove moves away to retrieve a cloth and clumsily dabs at the stray purple fluids that had gotten onto my fur, making them sting even more. Ominous. When she leaves my sight again, I look to my side and see the spider-looking object curled in on itself and unmoving. Dove stops for a moment, stumbling in the process, and gives it her attention as well. I'm not sure how I expected her to feel over the aggressive little creature that almost killed me, but the face she makes catches me off guard. She looks like she's in mourning. Who's he? Dove nudges the spider with her foot. I hold my breath in fear that it'll spring back to life and make a second attempt to take my life. What a shame. My head perks up. That was my first successful spell. Oh. My blood runs cold. What does she mean? She said what she means. That was her first spell. She created a spider monstrosity. You've seen quite a few of my spells by now. Dove looks down at her hands and starts counting fingers. The rose bush, the viper cage, the book spine. The sound of something tapping against glass makes me snap my head around. Up on a shelf, I spot what seems to be the source of the noise. Crimson-cloaked moths thrash around in a jar. Dove looks up at them. Oh, those are mine as well. Cute, aren't they? I gave them the raw meat you didn't want to eat, so they're probably hungry again. Lovely. She gives me a small smile, and knowledge ripples through me because why? These things are a success to her. She created these horrific creatures. It shouldn't even be possible. Dove can't use Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Ganji, are you sure about that? Dude, look around. Context clues here. Come on, pupper. Let's go. No, I'm... I feel my mind racing. If she was not the one who created them, then who did? I hear Dove fuss around the room once again, and I take in my surroundings. Ah yes, the sound of heat and cicadas. It appears to be some kind of study or lab. The shelves and cabinets line the walls, filled with jars and bottles. Air is thick with the strong smell of herbs, fresh and stale all at once. It's almost overwhelming. When I look to the very back of the room, dark room, I let out a yelp. Light pours in from a small window, and disturbingly outlines an arrangement of skulls around a dark frame. This thing over here. It looks like a mirror, but the surface of the glass is dull and doesn't reflect anything very well. The eye sockets of the animal skulls are shrouded in shadow, but they give me the creeping sensation of being observed. A familiar feeling I brush off with a full-body shake, 'cause nah. It's a witch's shrine. I Dub's voice frightens me out of my thoughts. She kneels beside me, looking conflicted. In her hands is a small jar. With a twist of her wrist, she unscrews the lid, revealing a pale green paste inside. This will help your burns. I cower away from her touch. Oh, what? As she tries to reach for me. No! Dude! I crash into something hard as I hide underneath the nearest table. Why? Your preconceived prejudice against her is gonna get you killed. Preconceived prejudice. His bias is gonna get us killed. And I'm not here for it. You gotta get along with people, at least in this state, to get what we want, which is the fuck out. Dove retracts her hand and presses it into her lap. Oh. I stare at her with wide eyes and crouch close to the ground, sheltered by the shadow. She opens her mouth to say something, but her words get stuck in her throat when her eyes catch on something behind me. She squints briefly before widening her eyes with recognition. She shoots forward. I yelp and scatter away to avoid her. While my body is pressed against the wall, I look to see if Dove has followed. I get her in my sight, but her focus isn't on me at all. In fact, the mysterious thing under the table has her completely distracted. It scrapes against the floor as she drags it out. A box. It's beautiful. Rose and thorn motifs decorate the smooth, dark wood. Dove regards it open mouthed, then snaps the chest open so abruptly that it tips back slightly. She slowly pulls something out of the box. I take a small step closer to see it more clearly. In her hand is a small bloody pouch. I read a single word on the label attached to it. Babel. Oh, one of the ghosts. I feel a chill crawl up my spine. What is that? Yeah, I'm curious too, but... Basil, you need to stop, man. You need to stop. I swallow heavily as I begin to imagine the worst. It couldn't be. Is it... I have an assumption here, but I'm not going to say anything. I pad up to the box and shrink back when I see the contents that lay in its red velvet lining. Bile... Yep, there it is. Does the satchel hold Babel's heart? Bile rises in my throat at the sight of human remains. My eyes dart between the objects in the box. A clutch of dark hair tied together with a ribbon, a small bone, and another bloody pouch, all with paper tags attached to them. Oh, these are all, like... I don't need to read the rest of the labels to know what's written on them. Names. The names of all the ghosts that haunt this house. Except for one. Dove still holds Babel's pouch in her hands. Can she release them with this? Is that why they're stuck here? A blank expression paints her face. With closer inspection, I can see a faint tremble in her hands. She quickly tosses the pouch back into the chest and slams it close. She slides it back on the table, then stands up and makes her way out of the study. I stand there, frozen, briefly forgetting how to move my feet. Eventually I trail out behind her. Reluctantly so, because I don't know what else to do. When I step out into the hall, Dove is nowhere to be seen. When I look around, searching for a sign of where she might have gone. Everywhere I look offers no hint. I whine, and I start navigating through the confusing hallways as best as I can from memory. Eventually I find her bedroom. Dove is not here. I find myself feeling relieved and troubled. I walk over to the spot I slept the night before, drop down, and listen to the noises of the house until I fall asleep. Alright, well, we're gonna have to continue this next time because we've run out of time for today. So, interesting. I wonder... Okay, so, Dove, witchling, whatever you want to say. She can use magic. Very obvious. But she's stuck here in this house by something that she is absolutely mortified of. And it seems like she's just kind of been stuck in this limbo, depression-caused limbo. Just hopeless and dour, whatever you want to call it. Just going through the motions at the moment. Okay, sorry, there was a train going by, and yeah, it's loud. A part of me wonders if She is being kept here due to mayhaps a spell that she did that broke the commandments, right? Or not even the commandments, but the rules of being a witch, whatever. Or if something happened with her parents, because I just have a very sneaky suspicion that the guy we encountered in the first episode is Dear Papa, Mon Père. I wonder. But, yeah, that's gonna be it for right now. There's gonna be more this week, another episode 3, so if you guys are looking forward to that, like and subscribe to this one. Oh, subscribe to me overall. Please, thank you. Big please. And yeah, also reminder, I am having a subathon on Twitch and YouTube that you guys are all more than welcome to come and join. There's gonna be a little thing for you guys if you join over on Twitch. There's gonna be like a fun viewer reward that you get to spin a wheel every, I'm thinking 2 hours or so, and you basically get to choose, or you get a random challenge for me to do for the next 2 hours in the game, which we're playing Minecraft, by the way. So yeah, if you're interested in that, come on over. There's a link in my main page. You can find it. You'll see it. You can find it, don't worry. Or maybe you can join us live. We're gonna be live for the entirety of Friday into Saturday morning, so yeah. All right, catch you guys next time. Bye.